that it influences the approach of even your CEO and his immediate team when it comes to putting narratives out there and how they do that. It must be that way. So I'm appealing to you to take an open mind to this and begin to challenge yourselves towards this paradigm shift, to being more communicators and more strategic in your approach, whether the situation is good or bad. Because when you're more strategic, even when it's a bad situation, you can turn it around. Not by papering over the cracks. Not by trying to launder the situation, but by acknowledging, accepting, if it's a crisis, for instance, and then positioning what is being done and how you're restoring confidence back into that particular situation. It's still part of strategic thinking. But if you're still transactional, when there's a crisis, the first thing you do is to put up a wall of defense. As you know, in the port system, it's not only Shippers Council that is there. You know, there are the tractors. You begin to look for various other things and trying to skirt the issue. But if you're strategic, you can own the situation and then turn it around. Taking responsibility, showing that you're even taking responsibility to address it is a plus. It's part of what adds towards your brand evolution and your brand equity. So first order of business is the paradigm shift. If that's the only thing I can successfully implant in this team, to go back and create a stir and engender a debate amongst yourselves, I think it will make a world of a difference in directing the flow of how you conduct business communication-wise. So, with that out of the way, let's explore perspectives. I'm going to open the floor for just a few minutes before I go on to my second point. We're going to take this in phases, in buckets, depending on how much time we are eventually allowed. My style, because I've been a teacher all my life, is typically, when they ask me to deliver a paper, I always tell them, he was asking me about the paper. I said, don't worry about the paper. I am the paper. I am the paper. Well, the goal in communication is to address the issue. That's the first goal. Because it's a retreat, that's why I didn't really bother about having a written speech. We will have all that we've discussed. You're going to get it in a clear paper format that strengthens the team. I'm sure by this evening, my team will have something out. I have my camera person doing the filming, so we'll get all of that together, and then we'll have something well structured for you that you can use and develop a playbook, come up with things that can really help the team, galvanize the team, give you that sense of above just PR. We are communicators. So let's deal with this. There's nothing too problematic, too negative that we cannot absorb, we cannot handle. And by the way, you're not the one necessarily responsible for the negative developments. Sometimes bad things happen in some sectors. But how we embrace it and how we take responsibility to communicate with the consistency, the rapidity that it requires, shows how proactive we are and gets us back in charge. So let's share some thoughts. We have agreed that the paradigm needs to change. So what are some of the things that you think you'd like to begin to do to shift the paradigm a little bit after this retreat? The floor is open.
Thank you. It's a conversation. How do we go from here? That's what it's telling me. So you can build up your own personal narratives. Where do we go from here and how do we do it?
So let's look at a scenario. I mentioned earlier on, of course, it will not be appropriate to mention specific names. Terminal operator A, for some reason, unknown to you, without reference to Shippers Council, without clearance to the NSC, tweaked its charges, its tariffs. Whereas Freight Forwarder B, who had initiated a large import, let's say, of wet cargo from China a month prior, based on a prior tariff plan. Because once you've arrived, there comes around other typical problems like demurrage and all of the things that are associated with delays, which freight forwarders don't like, or shippers don't like, the shippers end. And then they find themselves in a stalemate. This had happened for over 3 weeks and gradually began to seep into the press because of the status or stature of the two entities. It began to make for news. And the ramification that by the time the product is distilled through pumps or wherever, rather than go for 500 naira, we're looking at 1,500 naira. And Shippers Council is caught in the middle. How would this team handle it?
It's a question put all of you.
Yes.
Now,
Please.
let's hold on. Martin, I know you are senior staff. Put this scenario which happened with Shippers Council about 2 or 3 weeks ago. You were all there when they said One, what in One has increased charges. You were all there.
Okay.
You had it. Okay? Now, at that level, what is just a similar thing asking you, what would be your response level when you hear that type of thing? And suddenly, one of the freight forwarders came about that what shippers can do, that just they're wasting time, they don't have any responsibility to do. You had it. It was on press. Now, he's asking you, at that level, what would be your response level? What would you do?
One way to look at it is, how have you been typically, till now, responding to those kinds of situations? And then what needs to change
From there.
Typically, when I remember during my time in governance, typically when a crisis like that happens, okay, all right, we need to go, let's put out something, let's send something to all of our maritime press, whatever. It's not our responsibility, this, just to at least circulate, at least let our voice be heard that we are in the mix. That's what we used to do back then. I don't know if that is also the experience. But so let's look at it from the way we have been doing it and then ask ourselves, can we do it much more strategically, differently, in a way and manner that we benefit more in terms of our name, in terms of our reputation, in terms of the brand? I didn't want to mention names.
No,
I have to be out of respect for this.
To help you further. You know, in that respect, like the issue of grad we're trying to discuss.
Yes.
Now, first and foremost, I think when it happened, the head of PR first looked at the story and saw that even Shippers Council gave that approval in 2021. In 2021. And the mischief maker in 2025, from nowhere, came and said, how can they be giving improving rate charges by this year? When the economy is bad, the cargo is not coming in, there are a lot of international this thing, and the